Shalom. Making matzah. The first thing to know about making matzah is that it's entirely possible. It's not an impossible feat. It can be done at home. That's of course what everybody used to do. People made matzah every day during Pesach at home. When you make matzah, fresh matzah, you can make soft matzah. If you want to keep matzah for a long time, you have to make it dry, which means you use less water, which is a problem. I'll explain why. And then you end up with a cracker, which is fine, but it's not the same thing. And then, of course, it will last. It will keep for much longer, like any dry cracker will keep for a long time. Fresh bread won't keep for very long.
Yeah.
So the first thing to know about matzah is it's something that's doable. It's not a mission impossible. Number two, the flour that we're using is special flour for Pesach. This happens to be spelt, organic spelt flour. Most people do not add salt to their flour dough, but I do. For three important reasons. For A, it's entirely mutar, no question about that. Not only does it not speed up the process of himutz, of the fermentation, it actually slows the process down. Any baker will tell you this. It's something you can actually see with your own eyes if you bake. If you know, it's obvious. Salt slows down. It regulates the process of the himutz. If you have no salt in a dough, it will rise much more quickly and much more, will be out of control. And three, of course, it tastes much better. The water that we use to bake matzah is Machon Shilo, which means that they are cool. The idea behind Machon Shilo is that the water is cool, not warm and not even tepid, but cool. We draw the water in the old days from a well, nowadays from a tap. We put it in a bottle. Before the sunset, put it in the fridge. And the next day, in the morning, you can use it to make matzah. Okay? Now, I don't measure anything, as you're about to see. I don't measure quantities. It's all based on what I see. Also, I put the flour in the bowl. Where is that bowl, by the way? Thank you. I put flour in the bowl and I add salt. Mix them together, and then I add water slowly, a little bit at a time. The first mistake that every aspiring baker makes is to use too much water. Then you end up with a sticky mess that you cannot work with, and you end up throwing it. I know, because I've been there and I've done that. Every baker has done that at least a few times. Okay, so we begin. I don't measure, I think we'll probably finish this off.
What is kosher Pesach flour?
In this case, what that means is that it was particularly watched over by the producers from the moment that it was harvested until the moment it gets into that plastic bag. So it couldn't come into contact with water. I could give a long, lengthy discussion, shiur about the whole concept of matzah shmura and all the rest of it. We won't go into that now. But that's what that flour is. It's kemach shamul misha'at ktsira. I'm adding salt about 1 2/3 for this amount. 1 2/3.
What's the purpose of the salt?
He said before you came in, it slows down
All bread requires salt. B, it's much tastier, therefore. Really. B, it actually slows down the process of chimutz rather than the opposite. We need a bit more salt. Do we have a bit more salt? No?
Oh, I have more salt. I have a whole bag of it.
Here, there's some salt right here.
I'm coming back. I'm getting the salt.
Without the balatabite, just that.
Okay. Got it.
It might be 2 quarts.
No, I have fine salt.
Oh, great.
I bought a bag of it.
Okay. ככה יפה מאוד.
Yeah, you can throw them outside. Garbage man is over there. Because no one can find it.
You tip a little bit of salt. I don't want to put the spoon in there. Just tip a little bit into it. Okay. So this is flour and salt. Okay. Afihud, you come and help me please with the water. Where's the water? Where's the bottle of water?
Bottle of water in the fridge. Shandy.
Thank
The
you.
fridge drawer. Unless you want to use the same.
Wonderful. Afihud, add a little bit of water. I add water slowly, a little bit at a time, until I get the right consistency. I don't measure. A bit more, a bit more, a bit more. Stop. Bit more. Too much. Bit more.
Next time we're gonna have to get TVs and like just so people can see.
A little bit more. Stop, stop. Go easy, go easy. Once the water's in, you can't take it out, right? Okay. Bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. A little bit more, but just a bit. 2 tablespoons. Yeah. tablespoon. איפה זה?
זה קפץ עכשיו מהקרח.
עכשיו? בבקשה, כן.
If you're mixing the breads, you reset the time.
Sorry?
If you're mixing the breads, refresh the time.
As long as you're working the dough, the clock stands still. The clock is not ticking. The clock does not tick. If the dough is being kneaded or worked, it doesn't start again. It hasn't started the cloud yet. A little bit, just a tiny bit, like a tablespoon.
So if you happen to see the last second, when you mixed it for like 5 seconds, when you left it, it would just become
Let me explain. Dough, even with yeast in it, okay, does not ferment in the fashion of mine. It takes a certain amount of time. Using commercial yeast that we have nowadays, which was invented in the late 18th century, it happens fairly quickly. It begins to ferment really maybe within 20 minutes, 15 minutes. But with sourdough, which is the ancient way of producing bread, it's a much longer process, okay? Now, what the Gemara discusses is a dough that was left by itself, unattended, forgotten. And then the question is how long does it have to sit around before you have to be concerned that they become chametz? Most people know that it's 18 minutes. For reasons that I will not go into a great length now, maybe I will. I'll go into a bit of length. Briefly, I'll go into it. The Talmud Bavli, in most texts, says that the time for if a dough was allowed to sit around unattended, I mean just tablespoon more of water. The time is the time it takes to walk one mil. Mil echad. Okay, רגע. Okay. אז יש פה הרבה שאלות. There are many questions here. מה זה מיל? What is a meal? I think, I'm certain that the meal referred to by the Talmud and by Chazal generally is a Roman mile. מיל רומי. מיל רומי זה 1470-75 מטר. כמעט קילומטר וחצי. Okay? Nearly 1.5 kilometers. 1,475 or so meters. That's a Roman mile, which by the way is almost the same as a British mile. And that's not a coincidence, right? The Romans left their milestones all over Britain, as they did here in the country. Here we have milestones. Near where I live in Gush Etzion, we have milestones, Roman milestones from 2,000 years ago. And you can measure the distance between them. It's been measured. And it's very clear. It's 170, 175 meters. And these things appeared all over Europe as well. Okay? So how long does it take to walk, even if we're talking about a Roman mile, how long does it take for an average person walking at average pace to walk 1.5 kilometers? What do you say? כמה זמן לוקח לאדם ממוצע ללכת הליכה ממוצע קילומטר וחצי?
30 minutes?
30 minutes? 14, 15 is closer. I need a tiny bit more water, just a drop. An average, in my view, an average person will walk that distance in about 11 minutes, maybe 12, maybe 13, not more. Definitely not more. Okay? Now there's a couple of problems with this. First of all, in practical terms, a dough made of flour and water, which is what matzah dough is, right? There's no way on earth, if you know anything about baking, that it can possibly begin to be machmitz in that space of time. No way. Also, where does 18 minutes come from? It's too long. It doesn't take an average person that time to walk that distance. Second of all, in most versions of the Talmud Bavli, as it appears before us, it says this distance is the distance from Tiberia to Migdal Nunaya, what today is called Migdal, on the coast of the Kinneret. Okay? What is the distance from Tiberia, what the Talmud calls Tiberia, what we call Tiberia, to Migdal?
Old Tiberia.
Where is Tveria?
שאלה מצוינת. אז בוא נלך על החומה הביזנטית לכיוון מגדל. אוקיי, מה המרחק ביניהם?
English. I'm sorry. Let's switch to English.
כמעט בדיוק 6 קילומטר. אוקיי, אפשר למדוד את זה, 6 קילומטר, 6 kilometers. 6 kilometers is not one Roman mile. It's not any kind of mile, okay? Okay, so what? First, it gets more curious and curiouser when you look at the Talmud Yerushalmi. There it says that the time is not 1 meal, but 4 meals. Al-Ba meal. Now actually, that's extremely good, if you think about it, because a Roman mile is 1.5 kilometers, times 4 equals 6 kilometers. That's exactly the distance from Tiberia, from the Byzantine wall of Tiberia in the northwest, to Migdal. Exactly. It's almost precisely. It also fits the reality, because in that space of time, if it's 11 minutes to walk 1 Roman mile times 4, it's about 45 minutes. In that space of time, you could begin to be choshesh if it was sitting around doing nothing for 45 minutes. I need a tablespoon of water, please. You might begin to be choshesh that something might be happening there. Stop. If you look into it further, you discover that in some of the Kitveyat, some of the manuscripts of the Talmud Bavli, it doesn't say mil. It just says the time it takes to walk from Tiberia to Migdal Nunaya, which is exactly right. It just doesn't say how much that is, which makes sense because they were in Babel, they didn't know how long it was. But the people in Yerushalmi who lived in Tiberia knew exactly how long it was, and they say it's 4 mil. So the Kitzur, the real time is not 18 minutes, and not 11 minutes. If a dough was to sit around by itself, it would be something like 45 minutes.
So where the 80-minute came from?
That is some people's estimation of how long it takes to walk 1 meal, which is extremely slow, terribly slow.
Oh, the kids and babies.
They said when Bnei Yisrael, they went out of Mitzrayim,
and they had the dough on their backs, right? And they were able to bake until they got to this. So that was, how long was it take for them to get there?
A long time.
Did it sit, right?
All right. Well, it may not have been chametz, but we're not talking about. We know how long. If we don't know that it becomes chametz after 45 minutes, you have to begin to be choshesh that something may be happening there. As long as you're kneading the dough, it says mufurash in the Gemara, it says mufurash in the Rambam, it says mufurash in the Shulchan Aruch. As long as you're kneading the dough like I'm doing now, afilu kol hayom kulo, it cannot become chametz.
When they held on the back, the vibration.
Maybe that was part of what's going on. All right, this has to be washed. Has to be washed thoroughly, please, may somebody. And down about. Now, I need someone. I'm going to bring this flour, please. And sprinkle some flour in different places here. We need 4 volunteers who wish to make some matzah. Here, a bit in the center. I'm going to give every person a small ball of dough. As you will see what I do. I need one person. Okay, this is it. Can you put on some gloves and stand here next to me, please? Where are the gloves? Okay, go. Wonderful. You're going to keep kneading this dough.
Did you use those gloves yet? You did?
You'll see it's already
You
elastic.
touched flour?
The
Yes.
dough has to be.
You might want to get
Doesn't
new
matter whether
ones.
it's matzah or it has to be.
What?
One of the major problems with
Because
matzah production nowadays
if
is not
you
needed
touched wet
Okay,
dough,
now,
then
you
you're
have your gloves on? Gloves.
if those
What?
it's previously used. Last Nagla he used those gloves. Should he get a new form or
It
is he?
seems to be inside out. It seems to be clean to me. It's fine. If it's inside out, it's fine. Okay, you just keep kneading. Now watch. I take a small ball like this. You just keep kneading. I do this. Make it into a ball. Put a bit of flour. With the heel of my hand, I begin to form the shape of the matzah. You can actually do without a rolling pin. I have a bottle, but I'll show you with a rolling pin. Okay. Quarter turn, rolling pin. Quarter turn, rolling pin. Alright, so I keep turning it all the time. The reason I turn it is to achieve a good shape, a round shape hopefully. It should be thin but not too thin. We don't make holes. The total, not only is it a waste of time, it's harmful, not beneficial. Okay, this is done. I'm going to put this on to bake and then I'll give everyone a bowl. So. Okay.
Our neighbors have like that. אני הזמנתי.
This is the English version?
It's a matzah. In Hebrew we call it matzah.
Right, exactly. Very good, very good.
אבל ברגע שאת קונה שיר כזה, אני לא קונה, את צריכה להזמין 100. אני לא קונה.
יש לך טקסט בכיר?
כן, אני אגיד לך. This is for Yeshua. Okay. Rach, yeah, we put a little cold water.
See, if it bubbles like that, I wait till it like really bubbles. And then when it goes back down,
Okay.
this particular flour is harder to work with. This is spelt flour.
Yeah.
Full organic spelt from the Negev, using Moldovan harvesting materials instead of
Right.
the other local alternatives.
Right. Yeah. We do shibuk for Minchat Aretz.
Yeah?
So like whenever my community makes it. Yeah, he doesn't bring it to us anymore. He's too big, but he has other people. But we get our matzah flour, not our matzah flour, our kemach shmura flour from Mincha, and we usually do it from.
It's crazy because the wheat takes like 3 times the amount of water
Right.
than the kuzmin does.
Right. But it's a lot easier to work.
Very
with.
hot here, so watch out.
It's
I want to see the end product. Yeah, tortilla.
It's a lot easier to work with the
Listen,
wheat.
if you had a tortilla press, you'd be,
I know. Tell me about it, right?
you know.
Right. All right.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org. If you are inspired by Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to get involved in Torah Eretz Yisrael activities in your local area, please fill out the relevant form by going to the link which appears on the screen.